Welcome to Take Five's Crafter's Choice playlist. Today we will all be in a playlist, and this is hosted by Jeannie's Palette, Funky Junk Inspiration, and myself, The Painted Peach. Let's get started. This is DIY number 1. I have these 3 pieces of styrofoam that I've cut into rectangle square shapes anyway, and we are going to turn these into some cute little Frankenstein decor that you can either sit out on display for like a tier tray or something like that, or you can add some picks to them and you could stick them in different floral decorations or wreaths. I'm using this folk art paint, and we are going to paint them all with a really good coat. I'm going to struggle getting that plastic off like I always do, but once we finally got that off, then we're going to start painting this all 3 of these styrofoam pieces. This styrofoam took a lot of time to dry, just so you know. It soaks up that paint, so there's a lot of paint on there compared to if you were using wood or something like that. So just take into account that if you use styrofoam, it's going to take a lot longer to get your pieces painted because you'll have to wait in between. I tried drying, really didn't work too good, so just a little tip if using styrofoam. Alright, we have all 3 dried and ready to go. We're going to start on this little guy, and we're going to use a black Posca pen to draw in his hairline. We're going to then take some black folk art licorice paint, and we're going to fill all that in. I'm also going to add it to the top and on the sides of this Frankenstein. Alright, now that we got his little hair on, I have these little pieces from the Dollar Tree. They're little thumbtacks, and I pulled off the actual top of it. It's kind of like a velvet. So I'm just taking some of my black paint and I'm just painting over that velvet part. I have 3 sets of them. One of them is still on the tacks, so it's a little bit easier to paint. I'm holding the tack itself, and I am adding the black paint onto the velvet part. Alright, now that we have those painted, I set the other sets aside and we add these little guys for some eyeballs. I used the ones with the tack still attached for this guy, so no glue needed. Now I have a few different things that I'm going to use for noses. This one's going to have a little flat wood piece that I just happen to have in my stash. Not sure where it came from, but I'm going to make it a little bit wonky and glue it right on to Frankenstein's face. And then we're going to take our black Posca pen and we're going to draw a cute little mouth. This guy's going to be a little bit happy, so we're going to give him a smiley face. Now I'm just taking that same green paint and I'm going to mix it in with a little bit of black so we get a little bit of a darker green going. That way I can do kind of a shading outline on Frankenstein's face and give him a little bit of splotches here and there, because his face shouldn't be just solid green. You know, you're going to have shadowing and different things like that. So we're just going to go and dab all the way around just to outline him, and then give him a few little marks here and there for shadowing. Now we need some bolts. So my husband was so nice to hand me this set here, and I got out a set of bolts for each of our Frankensteins, and they're just different sizes for each size, and we are going to use those for Frankenstein's little, I think it says ears. It's the little bolts that come out of the side of his head. In order to attach these, I kind of just pushed down with the bolt, found out where I was going to put it, added a dab of hot glue, and then twisted and pushed that bolt in there so that it would stay. I did this on both sides and tried to make them as even as possible. This side was a little harder because I was having to sit this little guy up on the other bolt as I pushed it in. The hot glue will hold just fine. If you're worried though, you could add a different glue, and if you're using wood, you could just probably put some screws in on the sides. Now I'm just making this little tag. This tag is going to say nuts and bolts, and we are going to add a different tag to one of the other ones that will make this make a little bit more sense. Now I'm just going to use a piece of jute twine and a rusted safety pin that I had rusted up a long time ago with a bunch of other things, and we're going to attach this tag straight onto our Frankenstein's head. The tag does get a little bit of a dab of glue just to hold it in place of where I want it, but I do send this safety pin straight through and attach it on through the styrofoam as well. Here we are adding our little dab of glue, and then we're going to cut off that twine so that it's not just hanging over like that. We're going to cut it off a little bit short, and then that is complete. The only thing left to do is paint the back of this little guy, but we're going to do that at the end. And now let's move on to the second Frankenstein. We're going to go a little bit faster with this one because you've already seen all this, and I'm just going to move right along and put on his hair and face and all that good stuff. I'll just play some music for you and you enjoy. Here we are with this tag, and this one's just gonna say Frank's. So I'm gonna set this Frankenstein on top of the other, and it'll be Frank's Nuts and Bolts. The third one will not have a tag. It'll just be sitting beside them. I just thought it was cute to split it up a bit. And now we're starting on the third one. Alright, the only thing left to do is paint the backs of the other two since we did that one already, and then we'll be ready to move on to DIY number 2. I'll take this time to remind you that this is a playlist, so go check it out in my description. Here we are with DIY number 2. I cut out this shape from an old project I did, and I cut it out on my scroll saw. I also have a ton of popsicle sticks up there, and we're gonna start by we're gonna start by painting this shape with white chalk paint from Waverly. Now we're going to grab our Tim Holtz in the color linen, and we're going to put it all the way around and add it a little bit on the top of our shape just to give it a little bit of dingy color. And then we're going to take these popsicle sticks and glue them on different directions. And if you haven't guessed it yet, this is going to be a mummy. So once we get these figured out and glued on, I'll take it over to my saw and I'll cut all these ends off that are overflowing from the actual cutout and make them even with the cutout. Sorry, I can't talk today. And then we'll come back and I'll let you know what I do next. So here I'm just fiddling, and I finally find a couple buttons to put in there. These do not end up being what is in there. I add something different, but it actually holds the other thing I pick up nicely, so I'm glad I used those buttons. Alright, so now we're gluing in our last couple of pieces, and then we will go over and cut off all these ends and be right back. we're back and we're going to paint all of these popsicle sticks with the same white paint that we used before. And then we're going to go right in with that linen distress ink and do the same thing to the popsicle sticks that we did to the cutout. Here's where I decide I don't like the eye, so I end up grabbing one of those velvety things that I used on the other project for eyes, and I just left it the color it was, and that is our mummy's eyeball. I thought it looked more scary. I'm taking one of those tags that I showed earlier that I used on my Frankensteins, and we have added some of that linen distress ink to give it a more dingy look. And now we're going to write a little saying on there for our mummy. I decided to use Creep It Real. Now I don't have perfect handwriting, but I figured a mummy wouldn't either, so there we go. So I'm going to dry that up real good, and then we're going to distress the edges with a little bit of a darker distress ink just to give it that dirty look, because a mummy has been hanging out in there for a while. He's not going to be clean. And now we're just going to add that tag straight onto our mummy. We're going to add a dab of hot glue to hold it where we want it, and then cut that little piece and tie it tighter back there on the back. I'm also going to add some other things around there, some cheesecloth, and I'm going to add a rusty safety pin to this little guy as well. I do suggest painting the back of your project before you add your tie on. But I always do things the hard way. So here I am painting the back of my project and then finishing up with the rest. Alright, here is where I decide I want to make the inside where that eyeball is dark. So I add a little bit of that black licorice paint and I darken up that area where the eyeball pokes out. I think that in an actual mummy it would be darkened between all of those wraps, but I've never seen an actual mummy in real life, so how would I know? But anyways, I thought it added a little bit of something just by adding that darkness where the eyeball peeks out. Okay, and now we're going to get our cheesecloth out. This is some cheesecloth that I have pieces left over from where I coffee stained a bunch of different things a few years back, and I just have bits and pieces of it left now. And I'm hot gluing that to the back, and then we're going to add a little piece of it hanging down as if it was tied on. And then we'll add our rusty safety pin to those pieces there and make it all the more cute. Alright, here is our cute little mummy, and here he is on display outside. He's creeping it real, man, and he is super cute. Here are our Frankensteins, and it says Frank's Nuts and Bolts, and there's the big one on the side. I think they turned out adorable, and here they are all together, and I really do appreciate you joining me today. Don't forget to go check out the playlist and all the hosts for today. If you like what you see today, make sure to give me a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit that bell. Let me know you stopped by, and as always, stay peachy.